We can get going, then as the rest are joining. So yeah, we'll get started. So thanks everyone for being here. I just want to confirm everyone can hear me, everyone can see my screen. Yeah, got the thumbs up. So we're good to go. So as you all know, we're going to be discussing some of the essential integrations for mono teams, specifically with Workfront. So we're really excited about this webinar on this topic. We've found the power of integrations to be very important and really unlocks Workfront for a lot of the teams we work with. So just some quick intros here. My name is Christopher. I'm the founder of Pitaya Consulting. We're an Adobe solution partner. I'm joined here by Matt, our VP of Technology, who we will be hearing from shortly, and then also David, who is the co-founder. So a few just housekeeping. Yeah, as you're all doing great, if you could just stay muted, unless you need to talk, but just to help with avoiding any of those noises or distractions. That being said, you know, we're a small group, and so if there is a question you have during the webinar, feel free to raise your hand. You can come off mute and ask us questions. That's not a problem. And then beyond that, also feel free to add any questions you have in the chat. We'll be leaving some time at the end for Q&A. So anything you want answered, feel free to add it there, and we'll get to that at the end. So now for the agenda. So we're going to start by discussing Workfront as the core system of record or operating system of record, and we'll dive a bit more into what exactly that means. We'll be discussing some of the common, obviously, integrations that we've seen clients and companies use with Workfront, and kind of why they've decided to use those integrations and how powerful they are. After that, we'll be getting into a few technical demonstrations. So we'll walk through SSO, and then we'll jump on and do a true live demo of HubSpot integration we've built out, as well as a ServiceNow integration we've built out, and be able to walk through those use cases and show what that looks like. Then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about kind of our approach and what we've seen be successful with companies that want to integrate, and some of the approaches that we've seen kind of set them up for success. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So with that being said, I will pass it over to Matt.
Thanks, Tom. So all of you are here likely have worked with Adobe's Workfront, or even before Adobe bought it. Workfront is an awesome tool for project management, and then as Adobe has bought it and purchased it, moved it in, it's got an even bigger focus with marketing teams as kind of managing campaigns, or what a marketing team would call projects. So all of us are used to using Workfront, know the powerful tool that it is, but we want to talk about that as being the core system. So as an operations team, a marketing team, a PMO team, whatever your team is, you're kind of in that service organization, having Workfront as your core system of record. But then what are the other systems of record that you commonly interface with or would want to interface with to get real-time data? So we're going to take a look at some of those. So first, we're going to do some definitions. So first, we're going to take a look at what are enterprise systems of record. So on the left-hand side, a lot of these are terms each of you have heard at different times, but maybe have not thought about it in this type of paradigm. So each of us are familiar with customer relationship management, something like a Salesforce or a HubSpot. Those are some kind of the big names in that space. Human resources. So for HR people, they commonly have tools like Workday, Oracle, and NetSuite have tools along those lines. There's lots of big names in that business where the HR team manages all the employee information. And as a system of record is a system that is authoritative, is the primary place that critical data for the enterprise is stored. And other systems should not store that same data, but should reference or tie into those systems for data. So those are some of those examples. Finance are often called ERP. Oracle and SAP are kind of two biggest behemoths in that, but there's lots of different players in that space depending on the industry that you're in. But that's where the finance and accounting teams work and store all the financial and transaction data. The money flowing in and out of the business is stored there. And it's important there only be one source of truth for that. We don't want to have money going in and out in several different places. Another one less commonly known, but the operation systems of record. So as an operations or service team, your different tools should be considered an operation system of record. And that's what we're calling Workfront here today in this webinar, is one example of that. But there are going to be others. Other teams that are kind of more IT based may use something like ServiceNow or Jira. There's lots of other names in the industry of different things depending on the industry and the use case that you're trying to solve. Information technology, IT is a big one. So often IT owns a lot of the tools or helps administer a lot of the tools for the bunch of the other teams. But there's a few things that IT is key on or primary for. First thing is for all your collaboration or communication tools. Think about your email and your chat, those type of things. Those in most organizations are typically owned by the IT organization and is the first thing that is set up. And often other tools and systems are then tied to that or connected to that. That's where SSO comes from that. And we'll talk about that more later in one of our demos. So that's the first place where IT is kind of responsible for taking care of kind of the critical communication tools for the company and the security that backs and supports that. Finally, another key one is business intelligence. So BI tools are where companies will then, when they have all these different tools, they need a common place to create and put all that data. So take a copy of the data from all these different tools into a data warehouse or a data lake, and then be able to show reports and dashboards on top of that. The companies that are doing this best have then taken data from each of these different systems of record and are then comparing across different systems data. So perhaps looking at the life of a customer, be able to see it from your CRM into your operations tool and then out through your finance tool as the financial transactions happen. So you can see what is happening with that customer at each of those key systems involved in that. So these are some of those. This is not an exclusive list, but these are kind of the main ones that are typically seen in that. And you can see on the right in the diagram, so what we're talking about today is looking at this lens from the operational system view. With Workfront connected to these other tools, what are the critical pieces of data that other teams or divisions hold that is important for you to have? And how would your job be made easier or more efficient if that data was connected to your Workfront data? And so we're going to walk through some examples of that today. So we'll turn to the next slide, and we want to show one or two customer examples. So working with different customers, we've done lots of different types of integrations, from very simple integrations to more expensive in-depth integrations. And the number of integrations will vary by company and by need on that. So just want to show these as examples, but encourage you to each think of your own organizations and start thinking of this type of model or diagram in your own head, or even scratch it out on a notepad next to you of what is your system of record. Is Workfront you're in the center for your operational team? And then what other systems are you connecting to today, or would you want to connect to? So in this case, we were working with a very large PMO organization. So they managed professional services projects for this organization. And they had chosen Adobe Workfront as their project management tool. They're very pleased with that. But they quickly realized they need to get data from other systems to make it more effective and more efficient to work with. So first, the M365, so the Microsoft suite, they first did with Azure, did the Azure SSO or Microsoft Entra ID. They keep on changing the name, but getting the single sign-on. So not everybody would have to store their own username and password, but it would be tied into the security and compliance of IT with the same email and password of that. Then once that was connected, you're then able to connect to Teams or to SharePoint and to Outlook with Workfront using that. So once you have Microsoft's SSO set up, you can then connect to the other common communication tools that you may use if you're a Microsoft organization. After that was complete, they looked and said, hey, we're a project management organization. We want to truly know what are all the costs to run this project. So we need to talk to our teams in finance and how does that work? So in this case, this organization had SAP as their ERP or as their finance system of record. So a connection between Adobe Workfront and SAP was made to allow the different costing and revenue information to flow back and forth, both from SAP to Workfront and from Workfront back to that. So when you worked on a project and you logged an hour, that was a cost against that project, and that would need to flow into that project that was stored in SAP. So finance still maintained the system of record that they had all the financial information, but the project managers now had visibility in their tool in Workfront of seeing their total cost of the project. As part of these projects, they had different engineers and people that traveled out to the client site and said, hey, we've got a lot of travel costs. That is another cost on that. Well, SAP Concur, SAP bought Concur a number of years ago, but Concur is a very popular tool in the travel industry to book and to reserve and reimburse travel. But wouldn't it be great if we could see all those travel costs? Because again, that is another cost to the project on that. So another simple integration was done to connect Workfront to Concur to share that project information. Concur was already integrated with SAP as the backend to reimburse those employees, but also to tie that travel to the particular project that they were traveling for. So you can see kind of a little bit of a circle or a loop between Workfront, Concur, and SAP of having that financial information travel back and forth between there. Additionally, with Workday, so for this organization, Workday was their HR system of record. Instead of storing all the employee information in Workfront, they used Workday to manage that. So the login comes from Azure or from Microsoft, but then who is their manager? Oftentimes teams change, people moved from different organizations. It's hard to keep track of that within the tool. So by then connecting to Workday, the org structure, the management structure, and in this case also the cost structure. This organization stored cost not by the employee salary, but by the employee role. So there was a rough cost basis for each employee, so knowing kind of what an hour worked would look like at a cost basis from the company's perspective in that. So that was stored in the HR system in Workday. So that information flowed in from Workday into Workfront, and then Workfront was able to populate the ERP system, so SAP and SAP Concur. So with many of those integrations in place, this was very beneficial to this company, but they said we need some better reporting and dashboarding. As we know, one of the weaknesses of Workfront is it shows point in time. It shows you what the data looks like today. But if you want to go back and look at what did my projects look like, or what did my costs look like last month, or 2 months ago, or last year even, that's a bit more difficult with Workfront. So many companies, and we covered this in our webinar last month. If you didn't get a chance to see that, let us know. We're happy to share the link to the recorded webinar from last month where we talked about integrating Adobe Workfront with data warehouses and business intelligence tools like Power BI. So this organization in particular chose Power BI, being a Microsoft shop, wanting to store it in Azure. That was within the IT compliance guidelines. So the data from Workfront, along with these other connected systems, was then pushed out into Azure to be a data lake, data warehouse, just to archive that so they could look back a month, 6 months, a year, and see that data. Then dashboards and reports could be built to then share with the management and then the executive management of the team of everything that was happening across those connected systems. So this is one look of that, and this is what I would call kind of more extensive integrations where you've connected a lot of the major systems of records for a major organization together. The value of this also in talking to their VPs after these integrations were done, within that first year of completing that, they were able to realize over a $2 million savings on a cost basis. So it's a large organization, but $2 million is a pretty good number. And the second number they were able to share was they saw a 4% increase in gross margin. So having an organization that is very large to have a 4-point bump up in profitability, that's a pretty good jump from one year to the next by having these tools connected together, having the data in the right places that people can work with. So that's one example, just to help kind of see your mind, or in your mind's eye, be able to see how different companies are doing this and the things that might be important for you to connect to. The second example, we'll move to the next slide, is for a typical marketing organization. We've actually combined a couple different client profiles we work with together to kind of show this together. So this is a bit of an amalgamation or combination of several different organizations. But again, with Workfront in the middle, using, say, Microsoft, or this could be Slack, or this could be Google Workspace, depending on which tool you're using for your email and your chat, can be connected to Adobe Workfront to allow that to happen. In a marketing organization, you often want to manage your creatives and the different collateral that you're creating. So in this case, companies are using Figma to go ahead and create that collateral, but they want to connect Figma to Workfront. So within the projects or the campaigns within Workfront, that you're able to link out and know exactly where that collateral is and stored within Figma. Additionally, other organizations like other parts of the Adobe suite, and Adobe's done a great job of creating simple integrations for the other products within their suite. So for the Adobe Experience Manager, or called AEM, the AEM sites in particular has been key for a number of clients in the marketing space to be able to then, once the content is created in something like Figma or one of the other Adobe tools, to be able to store that and to be able to track that and to know when it's being used by different organizations in different campaigns or being sent out to different groups within the company. AEM provides a great tie-in and tracking for that. And then being able to link that back to Workfront to know where those links are and then where it's all connected allows better tracking by the project manager and the marketing managers within the campaign or the project within Workfront to be able to see visibility to that. Marketo is another great tool that Adobe purchased a number of years ago. So Marketo is a great tool in helping to then run those campaigns. So as you then send that out and send it out, text or email and things of that nature, Marketo does a great job of doing that. But connecting Marketo to both AEM and to Workfront allows visibility from the different groups into how those creatives are being used, and then the result. How many people are responding? What's the response rate? What's the tracking rate? What does it lead to if you then connect Marketo to your other backend systems of where a customer may go order a product or something of that nature? There's a lot of value in being able to connect those different systems together. Additionally, companies like this, and we've got a couple of them, they have other tools. So sometimes you may think Jira and Workfront as competitors, but sometimes both are in place within an organization. There may be a different team that is using Jira to start requests or start different information, because that's maybe an IT system of record. And their Jira and Workfront both have connectors that allow you to connect those two systems together so you can share information. So marketing may be able to take an intake from Jira into Workfront so that IT and other users, when the rest of the company may work in Jira, but then when they need help from the marketing team, they then submit that request. And integration from Jira to Workfront then allows that request to flow seamlessly into Workfront and start that project or campaign request with the necessary approvals from the marketing team. And as usual, putting a wrapper and putting that data from these different systems into a backend data warehouse like Power BI, or a data lake like Azure that then can have Power BI or other reports on top of it, then provide visibility across the different systems and provide you that historical basis of what has been happening within your organization as you've been working on these different marketing campaigns. So again, a second example there, just from more of a marketing slant, because I know Adobe obviously has a strong angle on that. A number of you work closely in marketing teams or work closely with your marketing teams in your use of Workfront. We'll go ahead and move forward to the next slide after that. So just, again, thinking about your own system of records, I put that thought there. We'll chat about that a little bit more. But we want to talk about, now that we've talked about what a system of record and some examples of that, we're going to go a little bit more in depth about integrating Workfront with some common systems. So we'll go to the next slide and just see, I've mentioned a few of these, but we're just going to cover a couple more of those. So the first one, which is tends to be the easiest to do. It tends to take more time and approvals than it actually does in getting it set up. But what's called identity and access management, or IAM integration. So again, that's what I talked about with Microsoft, with Azure SSO, or Microsoft Entra, and then Google Workspace with the Google SSO are the two most common. Slack is also another common integration if you use Slack for chat and communication to do that. Basically is then you are then tying Workfront to that system, so you don't have to track usernames and passwords. Everybody gets tired of tracking another login and password for that, and IT security gets really concerned when someone comes to the organization or leaves the organization. Have we locked everybody out of the system when they have left the company? So by tying those systems together, it allows IT team who manages that corporate email address and password to have the ability to turn that on and off, and all the systems that are then connected to that with SSO then follow that with that. So that's the first one we absolutely recommend, is to start there. Look at that to do that. If your company is doing that and has done that with other apps, doing that in Workfront and doing that in other tools is an absolutely first step we would recommend. Additionally, once you've done that, your collaboration suites integration follows pretty quickly behind that. So we all work day in, day out in Teams, Slack, Outlook, or Google Workspace, whatever tool your company has selected to work in. But being able to connect Workfront to your daily tools for communications makes it very easy to share information, even to have any notifications or approvals, any of those workflows to show up in the tool that you're already using. All of us are in and out of those tools every day. It's nice to have some of that Workfront information there to be able to, quickly get in and get approval done, or be seeing notice that, hey, I've got a new project that just got created that I need to take a look at. All of those things are very helpful when you then connect your collaboration suite with Workfront. We mentioned CRMs, and we're going to show a demo here with HubSpot, but say a HubSpot or a Salesforce are also very common integrations that can be done, because with Workfront, you want to see what happened before you started working with this client on that project. What did sales do, and what was sold to the customer in that portion before it came to you? Or how do you work with sales if you're a marketing team, because you're kind of in the pre-sales area? How does that information from your marketing campaigns flow up to the CRM into a Salesforce or HubSpot? So there can be different types of integration, different types of data flow, depending on your use case and your business need there. Mentioned HR systems integrations, but again, that's very common to then get any of that employee data that is important for you to track. There's a lot of sensitive employee data that you're not going to touch, but there's some employee data, like who do you report to, what management team, what are the team names, what are the cost codes and things like that that are associated with that are tracked in HR or the financial system. And so finding that financial system integration, being able to track costs across the every step of the process is very important to a lot of companies. And so integrating with that financial system so that information can flow from your finance system into Workfront, and then information from Workfront can flow back into your financial system to update and keep a good tally on accurate costs by using Workfront. So these are kind of common ones. As we've talked about those major systems of record, we just want to talk through all of those, and hopefully there's a couple examples of some clients or several clients that we've shown kind of get you thinking in that mindset. With that being said, we wanted to save the majority of the time today. Been talking for a while, but we'll go ahead and jump into the demos. We're going to do 3 technical demos for you today. The first is the SSO setup. Second, then Toph will take over and do the CRM integration, and then a ticketing integration example. So this will be the exciting parts of the webinar today. So first, with SSO setup, I'm just going to do a brief overview of that. So with configuring SSO and Workfront, you then are first selecting, what is the tool we use today? What has IT selected as our communication or our collaboration tools? So if you're a Microsoft shop, Azure SSO as it was known, Microsoft Entra as it's known today, is the connection. Within Workfront, if you go into your admin area, in the system area, there is a single sign-on section. It's very easy. You go into that section, you open it up, you start to configure it. Basically, you're going to put in the parameters to match your parameters on the other side. So whether it's Azure or Google Cloud, should have added the logo for Slack too. Whether it's Slack, you then work with the system administrator who has admin rights on the other side. Usually it's one of your IT administrators that has access to it. So again, as I said before, oftentimes it's the approval that takes longer to get the teams to agree to it than the actual work. Basically, you have your Workfront administrator working with your IT administrator over your collaboration space. They come together, they meet, they hash out the credentials between them to be able to connect those two systems to know about each other and connect. And then at that point, Workfront is then deriving its identity information. Any of the logins are then being driven from either Azure, Google Cloud, or Slack. Workfront also has some great tools in that. As you look in the admin screen, where it can auto provision. A number of companies like to use this, where that when a new employee is onboarded and they're given their email address, either in Microsoft or in Google Cloud or in Slack, it automatically can provision a free user within Workfront so that they can have access to Workfront. So you don't have to worry about setting them up in Workfront. They have access to that in Workfront. Then once they have that user, you can then determine the role or responsibility or the rights that they're supposed to have. Are they project manager need enhanced rights? Are they going to be an admin? Do they need to get admin rights to that? At that point, you're just updating that user to give them the appropriate type of access and rights with their position at that point in time. So that's a kind of a handy thing that Workfront has done in the SSO space to make that easy. And then it just depends on how pervasive the use of Workfront is across your organization. If you want to set that up, you can either set it to auto provision or you can set it to not auto provision. And to do that, and there's different reasons why you would choose to do that. Once that is set up and running, that does allow you to then do other connections to the other parts of that collaboration tools that I mentioned before. But the first part of that is, for most organizations, if you are using SSO with other apps, it's highly advisable to set up SSO with Workfront also. So just want to do that. There weren't really great screenshots to be able to show that, but happy to walk that through with any of you in your own instances if you want. So if you have questions about it, just reach out to us and we're happy to do an individual call with you after this webinar to kind of walk through that if there's questions or if you've had problems getting SSO set up from Workfront to one of your collaboration tools. With that, I've done my fair share of talking, so we're now turn it over to Toph and going to share the next two demos.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. So yeah, excited to get into these other demos. So for this first one, we're going to be looking at HubSpot. And I just want to kind of set the stage, set the scene for this hypothetical situation that we're going to be dealing with. So imagine that sales has just closed a new client, right? And now your team is the one tasked with the onboarding of that client. But you weren't on all those sales calls. You don't have all the context that the sales rep has just because you weren't involved with the entire process. So now you need to scramble to sync with that sales rep who is always too busy closing deals to have a meeting with you. You need to dig through meeting notes, review call recordings, and get up to speed with AI summaries to understand the full context. And by this point, you spent most of your day just getting that information so that when you have that onboarding call, you're able to confidently speak to that client of what was already discussed and agreed on with that sales rep. So now let's show kind of the better option. So I'm just gonna go in here and kind of walk through this live. So hopefully we don't have any technical issues here. So we're in HubSpot. So again, with that kind of idea of that process, we're going to act like I'm the sales rep at the moment. We have this deal. It's in procurement. It just passed. We're going to close that now, mark that as closed one. And I'm going to open this to show a few more information on this record. So we have obviously the record name, which is the company name, the amount, the deal owner, and type of business or business line. We have it as Workfront, and we have some description here. So I just wanted to highlight that, and you'll see why in a sec. So now I'm going to open up Fusion and just refresh this and make sure we don't have any issues here. Yeah. And I'm going to run this and I'll explain what's going on as this is running. So what's happening now is, and I guess I'll first say, for the sake of this demo, I'm just triggering it manually. Obviously, in kind of the real world situation, we'd have it on a automated trigger where it would be able to fire from the sales rep moving the deal into close one, basically from that status change. But anyways, just triggering it manually here. So Fusion is going in and it's going to read this record. It's going to look for records that are closed one. And then it goes through and looks if there is a program created for this company. If there is, then it uses that program. If there's not, it will create the new program for it. And then it goes and creates a project based off the business line that was selected, add some of that information to the project, and then it also gives a notification in Slack. So that's the high level overview now to kind of show you in action that ran. So I'm going to go here into our demo portfolio. If I refresh this, we now have this new program that was created for that record. And if I go into it here, we see that project was also created for being a Workfront onboarding plan, Workfront based on the business line that we have here in the record. And a few things I wanted to note, based off the template we're using, we have it automatically assigned to a project owner. We could have that be more dynamic based off whatever variable is on that record. Then if I go over here to the project details, we have this custom form as well we've added just to show you some of that information that we're bringing in. So we brought in the deal size. So this is that deal owner, basically the sales rep, when it was closed won, which is today's date, that information based off the deal notes that were, or the deal description that was in HubSpot. Then we also are linking directly to the record here. So the idea with all this is that as this project comes through, you have this new request to begin this onboarding, you have all the information that you need in one place. You have it, all that key information, we brought it from HubSpot or Salesforce, your CRM, into Workfront for your teams to be able to use it here. And then we also have that link for any of the additional context information that you'd be wanting access to. And then with that, we also have an integration with Slack where it's sending a message. We have it just routed to a test channel, but you could route this to a specific channel. You could have this even create a new channel if part of your process is to create a new Slack channel for or Teams for that new client. But it comes in and says, hey, new Workfront client has just closed, time to begin onboarding. It has the information on the name. And then we have it linked also to HubSpot directly here, as well as directly to that new Workfront project that was just created. So you can kind of envision and see the benefit here. If you're in Slack, you get a notification, you have the links directly to where you need to be doing your work all in one place. You're not having to go try to find that new project, go find the record in HubSpot. It's all easily manageable and accessible. So now I wanted to show another thing here. So I'm just going to change the business line from Workfront. I'm going to make an integration deal. And so just change that and go back into Fusion and just run this again and just show you how it's going to, instead of creating that program, it's going to find that program, then create that new project based off that different business line. So we notice we got a new notification. Instead of a Workfront client, now it's an integrations client. It has the link to that new project. So here's now the integrations project, which will also have all that same information here. Has a different project owner based on being a different template. Then if I go into the program, you notice on that one program now we have both projects nice and clean, organized. If we go to the portfolio level, just to show you, we still have the one program. So it's making sure we have everything organized and set the right way with being able to manage that. And we're not, accidentally creating multiple programs for the same client and then having to go find where all that work is getting done for the same client. So that is the first demo we wanted to show you was with the HubSpot. So hopefully that made sense. If there's any questions, definitely let us know. And then I'm just going to share this again and get into the second demo. I want to show this first, which is going to be ServiceNow. And so again, it's kind of setting the scene of the workflow that we're going to be exploring here. So imagine it's time to bring on a new team member. And part of this process is to submit a request for that team member in ServiceNow. So you need to get them provisioned in Workfront. You need to make sure you have the onboarding plan created, and you need to have those due dates that are going to be relevant based on when that person is going to be starting, make the assignments, and then let IT know, hey, like we've got everything set up. You can mark this request as closed. In other words, you have a lot going on, a lot on your plate in order to ensure it's a smooth process for getting this new person onboarded. So with that, I'm going to come in here. So we're here in ServiceNow. We have this pretty just simple new hire request that we've created. A few things I just want to highlight. We have the state currently as open. We have the new hire. I'm going to scroll down here. We have the new hire as Bruce Wayne. So we're pretty excited that we're going to be hiring Batman to our team. We have his start date as the 12th of January of next year. We have the department. We have who their manager is, and we're saying they need access to Workfront. So now I'm going to jump into this other scenario and run this and explain what's going on in the back end. So with this example, so it's going and finding that request and it's actually creating the user in Workfront in this instance for this demo. As Matt spoke to with the SSO, a lot of times organizations will have it auto provision the user. Then this would be more of an update potentially saying, okay, we want to change the license type or change that role. But for the demo, we're creating this user, we're giving them a role, we're giving them a manager. So we wanted to show you that. And then just another note, we're not adding it to admin console. And so you'll notice that the user, as I pull it up here, is going to come through as deactivated. But yeah, that's just because for say the demo, we're not doing kind of the full process as we would recommend you'd want to do. But yeah, so we have this new user created, Bruce Wayne. I'll just click into it real quick to show you that it automatically assigned me as a manager based off being put here as a manager. And then it created a new project. So I'm just going to open this. And so it created that user and it created this project. I'm just going to pull the project ID real quick to open this new project that was created. So you notice now we have this new project, Bruce Wayne onboarding, was automatically created, puts me as a manager as a project owner, then it also assigns me to these manager tasks and assigns Bruce to these employee tasks. So we have some pretty fun job roles at our company. So we have job role as Jedi Master, and Bruce is just a Padawan for the moment. But so it brings in the assignment, also brings in the role. Wanted to show that you could do both. You could do either or. Instead of, if for certain tasks, instead of assigning it to a direct person, you rather assign it to a role. You could obviously do that. And then the other thing I wanted to note real quick is if you notice this due on date or the planned completion date for this task for the employee start date was also updated to the 12th of January of 2026, which matches this date. That way it automatically says, okay, this is when they're going to start. Then based off the predecessors, we have this example project being all the dates being driven by that start date. Basically saying, okay, as a manager, I need to start the process 2 weeks before this date in order to make sure I have everything done. And then obviously the employee task won't start till after that date to make sure they're in the system and have been created. The other aspect is we're actually then sending a notification back to ServiceNow. So if I go into here, you notice there's two things. We've added a note here. If I kind of hover over this, you'll see that was modified by Fusion admin. So we're saying this user has been successfully added to Workfront. And if we scroll up here, we'll notice the state has now been marked as closed complete. So I wanted to highlight that and say, and kind of show the example of, okay, you can have this automation, it goes through, it adds, does all the updates, and then it can also speak back to, in this case, ServiceNow or whatever other system, and make those updates. So now from the requester, from the IT team, they're not having to go and chase and say, hey, like, was this person added? Is this complete? Can I mark this off my list? It automatically is marked off for them and keeps everyone up to date. So that is, yeah, that is the kind of the demo, the two demos that we wanted to show. And so hopefully that was interesting for you guys. And if you have any questions again on either of those, feel free to let us know.
Thanks, Tom. Great job doing the demo. It's always great to see things live. So I'm glad all the technology worked and we were able to get through it. That's great to see. And I think just as a wrap up of that portion is that you can see there's different parts of these integrations. First is deciding which system to connect to, how you connect to that. So, what keys or APIs or things that are there behind the scenes that allow you to connect the systems together. And then most importantly, what data needs to flow? What data is, which system is authoritative for which piece of data? So doing that data mapping to understand the data on each of those two systems you're connecting and which data is going to be helpful for the people in each system to be able to see. And is it a one-way push? Is it bidirectional? So doing that mapping of first, which system you want to connect, how you connect it, and then what data you are pushing on what frequency. Those are all the things to consider in doing that. So To close, obviously this is a free webinar, but we want to do our small little pitch here. So here's a bit on us. So with Pitaya's Consulting, we'll go to the next slide. As you can see, we're passionate about this. We do have expertise in connecting different systems. You can see some of the use cases that we talked about early on about different companies we've worked with, different systems we've helped them to connect. But we're happy to chat with you about the challenges you may find or the different systems that you work with on a daily basis that aren't talking well to each other or aren't working well together or are not even connected together. We do have an expertise in Adobe Workfront. We do have many different certifications amongst our team. And additionally, we have other experience with all these other solutions we've talked about. We've talked about these different solutions because we've worked with these different types of tools at different phases of our careers. So we're happy to chat with you about all these different systems that you may have and how they could be connected or integrated together. The biggest thing we enjoy is addressing those IT challenges. How can we help teams work more efficiently? How can we have teams with tools and systems that are connected to each other, that make your job easier, more efficient, get away from some of the mundane, the data entry or the other stuff like that, where you have to enter data twice in two different systems. Those type of things drives us bonkers, and we love helping people address those challenges and work with you. In the next slide, I just wanted to kind of, as we come to wrap up, we just wanted to talk about some market case study data. The part of it is you have all had management teams you have report to that you need to convince that this is a good idea to connect these different systems to. So here's some market research that we've pulled that helps support this case. And we're also helpful in working with you to kind of build the case. Happy to chat with your management or the teams needed to help convince them that connecting these systems together is a good idea and the benefit that would be seen by that. First off, 89% of IT leaders report data silos are creating challenges. So it is a real problem by having all of these data in different silos that don't talk to each other. 51% of business-to-business buyers cite poor integration as the reason why they're looking at different tools. They may have a current tool today, but they don't like it because it doesn't talk to the other tools that they use within their enterprise. 85% of workers today expect AI to improve their jobs. AI or automation and other things like that are a critical part as we look at this of what are the mundane tasks that you do today. Where would it be good to have a really smart intern, which is AI, working behind the scenes for you to help connect those systems and put the data in the right places for you, so that you can then make the difficult decisions on and the things that the humans do best at. And then finally, poor data quality costs organizations around $12.9 million annually, according to this one report, while system integration platforms deliver over 299% return on investment and 3.9 million in yearly benefits. So the losses are real, and the cost structure of different organizations by not having these systems connected. And once you do get them connected, the return can be quickly measured and quickly tracked as you do turn those systems or do connect those systems together, as long as you've set it up correctly and you set up the way to track that, just to know what is the positive benefit that has happened within the team so that you can report it back to your management teams. We can help you through each stage of those conversations as you're building the business case to look to connect systems, and then as those systems get connected, to document the business case and document the benefits that have occurred so that you can prove that what has been done has been a good thing, and here are the actual numbers, the financials, the other efficiency improvements that have been seen. A couple other market case studies. So one found that automating routine tasks such as data entry and inventory updates, most companies report a 35% reduction in administrative costs through workflow automation. And finally, the customer experience is improved when you create a unified view across CRM and support and sales platforms. Customer-facing employees have access to the right data that they can then provide a faster response and more personalized service. Organized that do create those integrations and connections between those different systems report on average of a 23% increase in customer satisfaction scores. That's tremendous. To bump up that high, that gets you a lot more repeat customers and a lot more customers that are going to continue buying and referring other people to come use your services. So those are just some of those things. But again, looking at the individual integration cases that you may have, we're happy to chat with you and talk about that. We'll come to the last slide. We'll come into the Q&A session, but we want to do kind of a free offer here. So we do want to offer a complimentary consulting session. Please reach out to us after this webinar at any time. We're happy to come and chat with you. Talk to us about what your system's records are, or how we can help you define that, and what benefits could you see from a seamless integration from there. What are your pain points today? What are the workflows that could be improved if you have that integration? We do offer that as a free consulting call with our experts. Those that you see here today, among others, can come join you. Depending on the types of systems, we'll then bring in different experts that may be an expert in Fusion or an expert on ServiceNow or something else, the different tools. So we'll have other people that handle those different integrations be the one that can work with you once we identify what systems you're struggling with. But let's work to connect and take your system to the next level. Hope you found this inspirational, that knowing that these things are out there and capable of doing things to make our jobs easier and other teams that you work with jobs easier. So we'll go ahead and close the main webinar content at this point. We want to open it for questions and answers. Welcome to ask anything that you've seen here today, or some additional thoughts that have come to your mind from the content that we've shown. We'll go ahead and open up. We're welcome to put it in chat.
Or come on mute.
Looks like Catherine mentioned that she's figured out how you can put emojis in team role names now, and she's going to use that as part of her shenanigans going forward. We're going to have to try that too. Catherine, that's a good find.
I'll ask a couple questions if you don't mind. Super fascinating. Thanks for walking us through the demos. I've built our HubSpot integration, and it's proved so valuable to us. I'm curious about the Slack integrations. You had mentioned, communication being a huge part of working nowadays, and a lot of that happens on platforms like Slack and everything outside of Workfront. Have you guys done any successful Slack integrations, or at least useful Slack integrations? Because I would say the out-of-the-box integration that Workfront provides is nothing more than like an app notification within the Slack thing. But, and we always try to keep project communication in Workfront, but inevitably it's happening in informal, DMs or in specific client channels. We're an agency, so we have a channel for each of our major clients and stuff. So I'm just curious, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Slack. It can be Teams or whatever, just any kind of communications related integrations and thinking, happening there.
Yeah, I'll mention one person on top. If you got, or David, if you have one, welcome to talk. Yeah, I think a lot of it is defining what is the use case, what is the problem we're trying to solve. But so I think those notifications are actually helpful, because there are some people that don't spend as much time in Workfront, but those notifications in a tool that they use more commonly, while it may be a duplication, it's actually helpful if they're not in there as commonly. Another company we worked with, the notifications with the approval workflows were helpful, so they would get notified in Teams in this case, but it could be done in Slack. Also, those approvals, they could then pull it up and click on it, or even have the ability to click on the approval. They could review the necessary data in Teams or Slack in this case, and do that approval. A lot of the management teams didn't spend day-to-day in Workfront like some of the other people would. And so having those approvals, that kind of shortened that time for approvals and things like that. That's one case, but I agree with you. A lot of times, these big integrations have these big grandiose ideas from the companies itself, but it's more on creating those individual workflows. What are the pain points within that organization, and how do we do that? So that's one idea I have there. Do you have a follow-up question there, or Sal or David? I don't know if you have another example you've seen in connected communication tools.
Yeah, Christopher, I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, but one of the things that we've been doing too is looking at with AI, creating an AI agent that actually is in Slack that then allows you to interface with it and integrate directly into Workfront. So now what we've done where you can have it that let's say you want to submit a request for work. Well, you can actually go to that Slack channel. The AI agent starts asking you questions about what you're trying to submit, and you answer right there. And then the AI agent that's within there will take and push that right into Workfront, right? Create the request or the project or whatever the requirement is, so that you have a record of it.
Okay. Yeah, and I just put in the chat, literally my next question is, how is agentic AI changing the landscape integration? I just came back from the Champion Forum, and that was a big topic of conversation with the product team and understanding like this conversational view. And I'm like, can it please be a two-way conversation? So like Workfront can tell me or my project managers like, oh, there's a risk that's happening. Here's a couple ways to, mitigate that. And which action would you like? Or you're doing this repetitive task. Would you like me to build a fusion scenario? I'm like, that's my dream state. But it's interesting to tie that into an existing communication channel, you know, and kind of not necessarily be on an experience lead kind of view or any of that kind of stuff. But, even just you guys talking, I was like, I think there's a new Slack module that just came out. And I'm like, can we automate like when the Slack channel gets created and have, Fusion created at the right time within HubSpot, or then when we wrap up all the projects for a client, it automatically archives it for the team. So we don't have to deal with that. So just that basic maintenance, I think is kind of table stakes that we should be doing probably. But I love that you are thinking that. I'd love to know more about the AI agents.
Yeah.
Well, David's doing a teaser there for you. So yeah, David, as a co-founder, is able to do that. But come back in January. That's going to be our next webinar. Is the January one. So you just got the preview, but we're going to be doing a little bit more work to look at those and provide a few demos along those lines. One that David mentioned, but working on a few others between now and then on that, because we're all thinking that way. Just what is the role of AI? What's the role of agentic AI? Just was reading an article, I think it was Wall Street Journal. Just a lot of the big corporate-led, top-down AI programs are failing, and a lot of the big consulting companies are failing because they're just like, we got to put AI into the enterprise, and that's not working. What is working is when it's coming bottom up. It's like, hey, I have this pain point. Maybe AI can help me solve it. So yeah, it may seem like small little things of like, yeah, let's close the project or let's archive things, but let's have AI do that. Let's have AI prompt people at this stage of that. Those are the things. And when the bottom up is actually where a lot of those agentic AI solutions are there. You need the technical teams to be aware, but those solutions that are coming from those teams and saying, here's our pain point. How can AI help me solve it? That is actually where AI is getting the most traction today from kind of a big worldview as far as that's concerned. But we're going to keep studying about that. And if you have other ideas on that, Ross, appreciate your insights and your questions there. Happy to continue to chat on those also, but we're going to key that up for our January webinar. We're going to take a break for December with the holidays and stuff to try to get people together during those times. But
yeah, and I have one last question. Do you know if it's possible to connect Google Looker to Workfront without Data Connect? Any use cases there?
Yes, it is. Yes, we've connected to several ones. I don't know if we've done Looker directly, but we have with Power BI and gotten to Tableau using Workfront's APIs. Data Connect is a nice prepackaged offering. So for those people who want something out of the box to do that, that's great. But we've actually found better success working with the longer standing APIs behind the scenes. And we've had a couple clients we've worked with where we've set up the APIs for them to be kind of the Data Connect replacement. Data Connect is nice, it's prepackaged, but it does have some limitations that the APIs don't have the same limitations. So we found some greater value, particularly for large data sets, to get them out of Workfront into something like Looker, which can then be the that front end dashboard with Google Cloud being the data warehouse or data store behind that. So there's some steps that have to happen behind that. So how you make that connection and do that. But we do have one of our integration experts on our team that's keen on that, and we'd be happy to set up some time with you if you've got a current case you're struggling with in doing that.
I'm not struggling with it yet because I pushed back and I said, well, tell me what information you would like to see on your dashboards. Then we can figure out like how to do it. But because they're like, can you do this? I'm like, I'm sure we can figure out how to get it, because they have HubSpot and Sage and all this other stuff showing them company performance in real time, but yet like this, what are the state of the projects in the business? Being able to extrapolate all that and publish that in the same space in a real-time format is a little bit of a hindrance. But in terms of like what they want to show, like I have now asked them 3 times. I'm like, okay, well, you have to tell me like what kind of information do you want before I can go create something for you. The old system admin thing we have to do sometimes. But
Oh,
I
that's great,
think
man.
eventually that might be a good conversation for us there.
Yeah, that'd be good. We're happy to follow up with you. And last month's webinar was around business intelligence tools, and we did a couple demos looking at either Data Connect or Fusion or the APIs and kind of use cases around either of those. So it just kind of helps take a look and see what are you trying to solve and which of those 3 connection types, whether it's Fusion, whether it's API, or whether it's Data Connect, which is the best fit for the client to get to the data they need, and then where is it going to go to be stored up.
All right. Is that link available somewhere?
Yeah, we'll follow up and we'll send that out to you, Ross.
Sweet.
Yeah, I can shoot it over right now on LinkedIn.
All right. Perfect.
Take a look, and then when we follow up with, we're happy to set up another call too with you, just go in more depth. If
Okay.
you need some help with that client, happy to kind of be your backstop.
Okay. Sounds great. Appreciate it. That's it.
Thanks so
All right.
much.
Yeah. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
you
awesome.
too.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.